All right, let's talk about one of the coolest tools in the entire data world, prescriptive analytics. This is all about taking a huge pile of data and turning it into more than just graphs and charts. We're talking about a real, honest-to-goodness plan of action. So, let's see how this actually plays out. Pretty much every company on the planet asks itself this question. It is the big one, the one that keeps people up at night. But for one particular telecom company, this wasn't just a thought exercise. It was an actual crisis unfolding in real time.
So picture their customer base as a giant bucket of water. Now, every single day, little drips are leaking out. And what was their strategy? Well, they'd basically wait to see a puddle on the floor, and then they'd scramble to find the leak. They were always reacting, always throwing last-minute deals at people who, let's be honest, already had one foot out the door.
Yeah, that whole reactive approach, it's a losing game. I mean, it's crazy expensive, it's not efficient, and it's just plain demoralizing for everyone involved. So let's really dig into why this leaky bucket strategy was failing so spectacularly.
Think about it. By the time a customer actually picks up the phone to cancel their service, it's pretty much too late. You've lost their loyalty. Trying to win them back at that point is a huge uphill battle that rarely works. This company was just bleeding cash in customers, and they knew they couldn't survive by just patching holes anymore. They had to figure out how to see the leaks before they even started.
So how in the world do you go from frantically patching holes to actually preventing them? Well, the answer is in getting a whole lot smarter with your data. The company had to climb what you could call the analytics power ladder. It's a way of thinking that moves you from just looking at what happened to making things happen.
Okay, so it starts at the bottom with descriptive analytics. That's basically just looking in the rearview mirror what happened last month, last year. Then you climb a rung to predictive analytics. This is where you use that past data to make a really good guess about what's going to happen next. But the top of the ladder, that's the real magic. That's prescriptive analytics. It doesn't just tell you the future, it tells you how to change it. And this, right here, is the big mindset shift. See, prescriptive analytics isn't about being some passive fortune teller just watching events unfold. No way. It's about becoming the architect of your own success, using data to get super specific, actionable recommendations on what to do right now.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. To get to those amazing prescriptions, you can't just wave a magic wand. First, the data scientists had to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty with all the raw data, just looking for the first faint clues.
And this is where it all began. For every single one of their 26,000 plus customers, they had a file with 81 different columns of information. We're talking everything from how long they talked on the phone and how much data they used to things like their income level and even the price of their phone.
Now, here's the thing. Just having a ton of data doesn't mean you have good data. That initial data set, it was a mess. It was full of noise, missing values, stuff that didn't matter, and probably some errors. So the very first job was to clean it all up, to try and find that clear signal hidden inside all the static.
So the first step in that cleanup was a bit ruthless, but it had to be done. They found 13 columns where more than 30% of the information was just missing. Things like the customer's type of house or whether they'd responded to a mailer. These were just too incomplete to be useful, so poof, they were gone. And just like that, the dataset shrank from 81 variables down to a much more focused 68.
Then they used some clever statistical tricks to fill in the smaller gaps and got rid of any customer records that were still too spotty. And this brought the total number of customers in the analysis down to just over 22,000. So yeah, the data set was smaller, but the quality, oh, it was way, way higher. Now they had something they could actually trust. Okay, now we're moving up that ladder. With a clean, reliable set of data, the team could finally stop looking at the past and start peering into the future. It was time to build a predictive model.
And this is really the heart of predictive analytics. They built a model and basically fed it all that historical data, teaching it to recognize the telltale signs of a customer who's about to jump ship. For instance, the model might learn that customers who call support 3 times in a month and have high data usage are way more likely to leave. It's all about finding those little patterns of behavior that come right before a cancellation.
The goal here was super clear. First, they needed to understand the big reasons why people were leaving in the first place. But second, and this is the important part, they had to use those patterns to flag specific, individual customers who were at the highest risk. And this is the jump, right? This is moving from just guessing who might be unhappy to knowing who is on the verge of what they call churning. All right, this is where it all comes together.
A prediction is totally useless if you don't do anything with it. This final stage, the very top of that ladder, is all about turning knowledge into a real, proactive plan.
So after the model did its thing and crunched all the numbers, it actually confirmed what another survey had already hinted at. The reasons people were leaving, it wasn't some huge mystery. They all fell into three main buckets.
And this table just beautifully illustrates the power of prescriptive analytics. For every potential problem, there's a specific, proactive solution. If the data says a customer is at risk because of high bills, the prescription is simple: offer them a personalized discount. If it flags poor network quality, the action is to schedule a network checkup before they even complain. It's like a perfect marriage of a data-driven diagnosis and a very targeted treatment. I mean, this quote from the project summary just says it all, doesn't it? It's the entire journey in one sentence, from raw data to analysis, from prediction to specific recommended actions that directly tackle the business's biggest problem. So, the whole point is this massive shift in strategy. The company is no longer playing defense, just waiting for the bad news to roll in. Now they're on offense. They're armed with data that lets them anticipate what customers need and solve problems before the customer even thinks about leaving.
And that's really the philosophy here, isn't it? Prescriptive analytics isn't about being a bystander, just watching what's coming. It's about having the insight and the courage to take actions that actually shape a better future for your company.
And that's the big takeaway. This isn't just about one company fixing its customer churn problem. It's about a whole new way of solving problems. It's about using data not just to look in the rearview mirror, but to actually grab the steering wheel. So whether it's making supply chains more efficient, or improving healthcare, or personalizing education, the only real question left is, what future could you change with the right prescription?